Good morning, everyone. We're continuing with our review of the Astral Ascension prayer that Swamiji wrote for saying goodbye to our departed loved ones and also to bless their souls on their journey. So let's now start with the prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, Beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, Beloved Master Paramahansa Yogananda, Saints of all religions, dearest divine friend Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow to you all. Open our hearts and minds to your transforming presence, that everything we do will shine with your love. Om. Peace. Amen. Well, dear friends, we've been going through this prayer, and as is always the case with something that Swami writes, I've recited this prayer in many different circumstances and have read it many times. And when you go through what he's written, you just see these beautiful patterns that make everything so much deeper. What's very sweet about it, and this is one of the beauties of Swami's writing, is it was all an intuitive flow. He did not sit and calculate, oh, now we need to do this, now we need to do that. He would get a feeling for what it was he wanted to say, and then the words would just flow out of him. His whole life actually was that way. Sometimes in the way events would unfold and the way situations would resolve or open up, an intellectual person would think it out. I'll do this, then this will happen. I'll do that, then this will happen. When we did the project that was the Bicentennial Liberty Committee, which was an effort to get the incompetent planning director fired, as the grand jury had suggested, but the Board of Supervisors of the county was not willing to do. This was in 1976. Swami just launched this whole campaign of ever-escalating intensity, and then it crested and resolved, and the woman did get fired, and as a result, Ananda was able to develop because she was going to block our development forever. And the way it unfolded was very interesting, and I said to Swami afterwards, did you know how this was going to unfold? He said, not exactly, but I'm not surprised. And then he said to me, I just follow each step intuitively as it comes to me, and I trust that it will go where it's supposed to go. That's that was a really profound statement that I've thought about a great deal, because the egoic mind plans. It wants to know everything that's going to happen. A person of Swami's caliber, spiritual attunement, just knows that if he feels guided to move in this direction, he just needs to take the step he can see. He doesn't have to see all the steps down the line, because if he takes the one that's asked of him, then the next one will be in front of him when the moment comes. It's a level of experience and faith, but it's primarily a level of experience that is just after you see it happen over and over again, and you know what that intuition feels like, you just follow it. Now here I am going to be digressing apparently a good bit this morning, because in 1981, when Swami Kriyananda stopped for a time, we stopped for about 12 years, being a sannyasi and became a householder. There were two women involved in that period. The first was this woman whose name ended up being Parameshwari, and he met her in 1981 in Hawaii, and he had been praying to Divine Mother that some kind of a change was needed in his life, and he partnered with her. They became spiritual partners. He put aside his title of Swami, and he didn't take it up again until about 1992 or 93, 12 years, I believe it was, maybe a little later than that. And then what happened with Parameshwari was he made a huge public declaration about the importance of the householder life, how he felt called by his guru to follow the householder's life because an example needed to be set. I wrote it all up in great detail in Lightbearer. If you look at 1981, you can read the whole story. But he met her in February, and because in those days all communication was print media, and his major announcement and story came out in the Yoga Journal magazine in the January issue. But the January issue was, sent to the press in October or early November. So they met in February. He sent in this whole article announcing this whole change in his life with pictures of himself and Parameshwari and everything in November, early November. By the end of November, she left, never to return again. So it was published in January after it was all over. And Swami's comment was, "This is a very embarrassing situation if I chose to be embarrassed." So he's getting congratulations on this whole change of lifestyle, and it's already history. It was quite a moment. Now, the end of all of that was Swami became quite distressed, and he withdrew into himself for a number of weeks and just was very distraught. Now, the average person would think he was distraught because he was in love with this woman and she left him and his heart is broken. He was sad because he had seen something very beautiful that was possible. He was very sad for her, for the choice that she made. But what he was most distressed about, what he was really entirely distressed about, was that he'd felt guided by Master to make this decision. And it seemingly had proved to be wrong. And he said if he can't trust his intuitive feeling of Master's guidance, he really didn't know how to go on, because that was the guiding force of his life. So he was quite dismayed about it for quite some time, weeks. And then one day he just popped back up and he was completely himself again. And he said he realized that that Ananda had a very specific need, which is to balance the importance of the householder life. The monastic life was beginning to dominate, and that wasn't the purpose of Ananda. It was to show a spiritual potential for householders primarily. Monastics there have always been and always will be. This was the Dwapara Yuga, and he said, and that was accomplished. He said he naturally thought that his relationship with Parameshwari would last longer, but the relationship was never the point. The point was the shifting of the energy of the community, which happened perfectly. So it was different than he expected, but not wrong. So bringing it all the way back to here, when Swami would write, especially something like this, he would just feel the inspiration and he would just write it. And then only much later when he would go back, which he never did, but sometimes others of us did, you would see a structure and a pattern and a balance and an inspiration in it that was not calculated on his part. It was just, once you're in the flow of energy, this would be the natural next step. So now let's continue to look at what he's done here. So we just finished the part where we have said, our desire is not to hold you back, but only to wish you well for your highest happiness. And then we have declared, we shall meet again. And that's, of course, what everyone wants in their heart, is that this separation will not be final. We shall meet again. And look how Swami describes it then. Once more we shall laugh together, rejoice together, and share in the joy of seeking God. Now that's the real purpose why we come together. But I love that he says that. We shall meet again. Once more we shall laugh together, rejoice together, and share in the joy of seeking God. And now, once that has been established, now we go back to assuring the departed soul that he can go on and do what he's supposed to do, because we're going to meet again. We're going to have our joyous reunion. You don't have to worry about that. You can just put it aside with the confidence that it will come. We are not lost to each other. So now we say to our departed, claim your soul's freedom. Now see how much courage and selfless love there is in that? We don't say to the departed one, oh, remember me, don't forget, I miss you so much, where are you, where are you? We say, claim your soul's freedom. Bless all who ever harmed you or ever wished you harm. Now, what's happening here, we've just been spending weeks on this, haven't we? When we start in on the final exam, it's like, okay, let's be free. Let's just go to God. Oh, yeah, there's all these things tugging on us that are keeping us from our freedom. That's what the whole final exam was about. How do you deal with this kind of attachment, this kind of disappointment, this kind of longing, this kind of regret? And once we untie all those knots, we are like a balloon, a hot air balloon that just really wants to rise. And it takes a great effort to keep it down. It has to be roped down once that hot air is in the balloon. It has to be held down. Once the ropes are cut, it rises automatically. But then we also sometimes have ballast in the balloon. Ballast are heavy sandbags or bricks or something. And as we begin to rise, depending how high we want to go, we start throwing the ballast overboard too. So that we can, because the nature of the balloon is to want to rise, the nature of the soul is to want to rise. And thus we have roped ourselves down with regret and anger and attachment. So he says, claim your soul's freedom. Bless all who ever harmed you or ever wished you harm. Give them your love and your prayers for their freedom in God. So this is very careful instruction, and we don't have to die before we pay attention to this instruction. This is part of the advice for the final exam. Claim your soul freedom. Bless all who ever harmed you or wished you harm. Now, some of the people sitting in the funeral, if we're sitting in a funeral, maybe the people who harmed the departed, because just because someone has died doesn't mean that all the animosities are gone. So it's also a way of saying, I'm sorry. Bless those who harmed you or ever wished you harm. Don't, even if they're holding something against you, don't hold anything against them, because you want your balloon to rise into the spirit. Bless all who ever harmed you or ever wished you harm. Give them your love. Well, it's a high standard, but that's what we need to hold ourselves to. Give them your love and your prayers for their freedom in God. Now, see, this is also very subtle. It's like, why do people wish you harm? Because they're in delusion too. So the way to extricate yourself from it is to help them extricate themselves from the delusion. Your prayers for their freedom in God. Friend, and this is again, we always address the departed as friend, not as mother anymore, or sister, or my baby. We say friend. Friend, cast from your heart all outward attachments. Realize that earthly goals, however shining, are but dreams. Cast from your heart all outward attachment. Realize that earthly goals, I love how he puts that, however shining. Because there are many things about this world that we really aspire to and we're still attached to. I really wanted to do that wonderful painting. I wanted to have my show produced on Broadway. I really wanted to raise a family. I really wanted to build that dream home that I've been drawing ever since I was a 9-year-old child. Just whatever it might be. And they're beautiful things. They're shining. They're shining with reflected light. They're not the source of light. But if we give them light, they seem to shine back to us. However shining, and the words he uses are but dreams. He doesn't say that they're not beautiful. And that's a wonderful way to think about it. Sometimes people think that you renounce attachments by calling them ugly. That usually doesn't persuade, because if we're attracted and attached to them, we think they're attractive. If we didn't think they were attractive, we wouldn't be attached to them. So it doesn't serve to say, oh, it's nothing, it's stupid, it's not like that. But the point is, they're dreams. Dreams is very interesting because, of course, a dream is very real while it's happening, isn't it? And when you have a vivid dream life, it gets very confusing sometimes. Did that happen or did I dream it? Or you wake up and you're sort of later in the morning, you're either feeling very, very happy or a little bit disturbed. Why am I feeling disturbed? Oh, it was because of that dream I had. So it's not like it's not a real experience. It's just not what it seems. That's the subtle thing about this world, because we live in the dimension of time, and the span of an incarnation seems to go on for a while, and the dream is consistent. We don't know it's a dream. But when we wake up in departing our body, I've never had these experiences, but I somehow intuitively understand them. And we've read a lot about them. I was very struck by one particular dream experience that a dying man had. And suddenly he got a glimpse of a greater reality, and he saw his own life in the context of that greater reality. And the way he described it, he said he couldn't see it so clearly anymore. And that his entire demeanor on his deathbed, where he'd been very agitated and very afraid, he suddenly became very joyful and very relaxed and happy. And he said he couldn't see into that other dimension, but he said it was just at the edge of his peripheral vision. It was like he could almost see it. Just he would get the tiniest glimpse of its shimmer. If he would turn to try to look at it, it would move away. Like when I lived in Texas and we used to drive across the desert, the water mirage that gets out there. It's shimmering, but you can never quite catch it. He said that's what it was. He'd seen into the other world. He'd realized that this world is not what it seems. That it's a shining dream, but the greater reality is behind and beyond this world. So cast from your heart all outward attachments. Realize that earthly goals, however shining, are but dreams. And then we affirm unequivocally, God is the only reality. Sat Chit Ananda, ever existing, ever conscious, ever new bliss. That is the only reality. Everything else is kind of a diaphanous curtain which we look through, trying to see that Satchitananda, but we see all these other earthly goals. But now that we're out of this world and it's not holding it, it's just cast aside. No matter how beautiful, what we're really seeking is Satchitananda. God is the only reality. Then he suggests, then it becomes more dynamic. Burn your earthly desires in the fire of wisdom. Many times in spiritual life, fire is the symbol. Fire represents the Kundalini energy, burning up all our vrittis. Fire represents the spiritual eye, taking into which we offer ourselves to be transformed into the light. So now, when we're talking to our departed friend on the other side, we're strengthening them in this commitment. Now you see, our commitment to their freedom also gives them permission to go ahead and do this. Think back a couple of days ago when I was talking about that shrine that the woman built on the side of the road a few miles from where our community is in Assisi, Italy, because her son, unfortunately, was killed on that road at that place. And for years, she kept a shrine right where he was killed, and she kept it filled with fresh flowers, which means that she would go there almost every day, and she would mourn and she would grieve. Others would think, oh, what great dedication of the mother. Swami said how terrible for the soul of that poor man, because he's needing to go on and to free himself from all the attachments of this life so he can expand into the next chapter, and she's constantly pulling on him. And he felt that that's not love, that's pure selfishness. So the departed, being who they are, loves and cares about us also. And so the assurance from us, go ahead, you can do it. Think back to the other image that I offered of sending your child to Europe to go to college. or to just go live, or go to Australia or New Zealand if you live in America and you're sending them very far away. But it's even, you hope it's the right thing for them, or it's the right thing for them, and you certainly want them to have their opportunity and not be divided because they're so worried about you. So when you really support them and gift them with just the right things that they're going to need, and write them an encouraging letter, and just tell them to really have a great experience, not only does it give them energy for that experience, but it also gives them permission. So at a funeral service, or wherever this is being said, I mean, this can be said over the now empty body of the person who's departed. I've recited the ceremony, within a very short time after someone has died, with the family and the now departed, the corpse, the empty body of the person, and they're probably still in the room. But we're saying, okay, you're on the train, you're on your way. We're giving you energy and we're giving you permission. And in this case, we're also giving you instructions. But the instructions are for those who are left behind also to realize, how should we think about it? Burn your earthly desires in the fire of wisdom. Burn earthly limitations in the blaze of inner freedom. So desires, the opposite of desires is wisdom. Earthly limitations are consumed in the blaze of inner freedom. We're so limited living in egos and in bodies, what we can experience, what we can think, what we can feel. In the astral world, without the heavy burden of a physical body, we can transform things with our thoughts. We can communicate telepathically. We can be forever young. All physical ailments have gone away. We can have ambrosial fruits just by thinking about them. So I'm told all of our limitations are just gone away. So burn earthly limitations in a blaze of inner freedom. And inner freedom, of course, spiritual freedom, moves us away from disappointments and heartaches and longing. Limitations, the opposite of limitation is freedom. Burn earthly disappointments in the flames of spreading peace. Disappointments is this angst about, I wish, I wish, I wish. Peace is, oh, everything is just as it's meant to be. Just disappointments agitate, peace. Burn your earthly desires in the flame of wisdom. See through the delusions. Burn your earthly limitations in the fire of inner freedom. You no reason to consider yourself bound. Burn earthly disappointments in the flames of spreading peace. It's all over. It's done. You've done the best you could do. Some of it went well. Some of it didn't. Some of it was what you wanted. Some of it wasn't. But you did your best. Now you can just be at peace. Isn't that a wonderful, just even to consider that, just to be at peace. Burn earthly joys in the bonfire of divine bliss. So all of the little joys that we were stacking up and trying to make a whole, now we just throw them into this bonfire of divine joy in the presence of God. And all those little small experiences we see, we're all leading to this great freedom. It's not that our earthly joys were not joyful. It's just that we were born for much more. We keep expanding. One of my favorite whispers is, Master says, whatever little bubble of joy you have and whatever causes it, he said, keep expanding it till it becomes infinite. So we had a little love with our family. We make that the infinite love of God. So we had a little joy in beautiful music. We make that the infinite sound of Om. We had a little pleasure in beautiful things. Now we live in a realm of pure and blissful light. It's like all those little things were just a practice in the bonfire of divine bliss. Now we start talking about the body. And it says, see your physical form as a discarded garment. I mean, just think about that. I was looking at my closet the other day, and I only have Nayaswami clothes. Everything is blue in that closet. But there's a little more blue in that closet. I'm not quite sure. It's still far less than what used to be in that closet before I was a Nayaswami, but there's more of it. It's been 10 years. No, uh, let's see. Yeah, it's been 11 years. So it's not surprising, but still I was a little amused, and I thought I might ferret around in there and see what might be superfluous. That I just say that because I was thinking of discarding garments. All of us have discarded garments. You may have enjoyed it. I was helping a friend of mine clean her closet because she was not a person who was very good at throwing things away, and I'm a very good Shiva. Shiva just discards, destroys, renounces. I'm very good at being a Shiva for other people, especially. But there was one garment in her closet, and I said, "What's that?" She said, "It was my favorite dress in high school." I said, "How long have you been out of high school?" It was quite a while. She said, "Yes, but I so loved wearing it." I said, "What are the chances?" It happened she was the same size, which was not common, but I said, "What are the chances you're ever going to wear it again?" Not very great. So we took it out of the closet, and I don't think she's ever missed it again. That's we can cling to the physical body like that. We're never going to wear it again. It's completely worthless to us at this point. Are we going to keep just holding it, clinging to what is behind us? Or can we put the past behind us and go forward? A discarded garment. And then Swami adds, clothed you now are in garments of radiant light. So not only do you not, not only is this behind you and you really can't wear that body anymore, but look at the body you have now. In the astral world, it's very amusing to me. I read this in Autobiography of a Yogi, The Resurrection of Sri Yukteswar. Most people, almost everyone in the astral world, makes a body that looks about 25. I thought of that. It was a very interesting revelation to me as I began to age. Now I'm past the began to age stage. We're at the point where we try to look. We no longer have youth, so we try to seem youthful. That's basically what you do. When my body began to shift, I don't know, 50 or when I was 50. Well, it shifts all the way through, but about 50 for a woman, it really shifts. 60, it just really begins to change. What amazed me, absolutely amazed me, one, that I noticed, and two, that I actually cared. It was just very impressive to me. And I would look at it and I would think, how many times have you done this? Unless you died young, you've done this millions of times. What possible difference does it make? And I actually was quite bewildered by that. I've never been particularly vain about my physical self. I'm a deep, dedicated yogi, and yet I noticed with just a little anxiety that women, you will understand this. For about 3 or 4 years, I think maybe as long as 5 years, I kept changing my hairdresser because I thought it was their fault. And then one day, well, first of all, one hairdresser said to me, everything gets old, honey, including your hair. That was what she said. But I also realized, no, it's just I am different. So all of that was there. Then I realized that Sri Yukteswar said that when we have a choice, we look 25, which actually, I don't know, it comforted me. It made me realize that there is just a certain delight in that youthful, new, unmarked, vital, sort of vitality. Not that that excuses my attitude, but it was amusing to me. Sri Yukteswar made himself elderly, which is why he mentioned it. He was unusual. In the astral world, he's an old man, but very few people are. Most people are 25. So it's a discarded garment. Clothed we are now in radiant light. So you're also helping, literally helping, the departed person to realize, I'm dead. And I know that might sound funny, but they're not exactly sure what they are sometimes. They don't quite know where they are. They might still be thinking about that body, but oh, look, I have a body. I'm clothed now in radiant light. I don't need that material form anymore. It was just a dream. I can let it go. All right, my friends, we'll stop here and then we'll go forward and perhaps finish tomorrow. God bless you.